it's not possible to have all the answers or to fix everything. For me, it's been really helpful for me to recognize that I can't be everything to everyone. I can't fix everything, and I don't have to be perfect as much as I want to be.
This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 222 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I am excited that you are here, and I'm excited that we have this episode that has come about with Jacob Puzey. I have really connected with him and just felt so much love and appreciation for this guy over this year. You're going to hear why in this episode. I'm going to give him a big shout out at the beginning of this episode. And if you do not already follow this guy, go do it. He is a wonderful human being. And I just wish everyone would get to soak in his wisdom and his just vulnerability. It's really amazing to see a guy allow his vulnerability to come through. And I'm just appreciative of him. So that said, I just want to remind you that a week ago today, I had a bonus episode with Des Linden. If you missed that one, be sure to go check that one out. On Friday, we also had an episode with Oren J. Sofa. This is going to be a tough few weeks. We know that. We have lots of family connections, and maybe you may not agree with the viewpoints of your family. This episode with Oren will really help you negotiate those situations. Just such a good episode. So be sure to go check that one out. Today. So we're going to talk about coaching. We're going to talk about him being a father, having female role models for his daughters, his brother Tommy Rivers, who you may have heard a lot about in just the running world, I guess, while he is overcoming some really tough stuff. So we're going to hear a lot about what's going on, how his updates is, how this has impacted Jacob, talk about the support network and how important it is. We're learning about that a lot. And finding your strength in sport. There's a lot in here that could reach everyone. And it really, I believe it does. So I'm excited for you to go meet Jacob and to get to know him a bit more. And I'm really thankful for this episode with him. I want to thank Inside Tracker as one of our sponsors for this episode, and we'll be right to it. Thank you to Inside Tracker for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. I've been telling you about Inside Tracker for years. It has been a little while since I've mentioned it on the podcast, but Inside Tracker has been a friend and a sponsor and just a great company to work with for many years now, maybe I'd say at least 5. I've been working with this brand and getting my regular blood test done to find out where my gaps are in my nutrition, to see what the glaring signs that my body is not quite right. It helped me to figure out a lot of my issues with amenorrhea in the past, and I am keeping track of where my body is at. It's a great way to look at your biomarkers to see what is going on inside your system. From getting it tested, you just go to the one of many locations to get tested. A few days later, they send you your results that tell you where you were at in terms of your markers, your levels. And then from there, they have on their interactive website recommendations for you, what foods you could eat, what supplements, if you want to go the supplements route, but I prefer just using Athletic Greens and then filling in the gaps of nutrition myself. But it tells you what foods you could go get to make sure you can bulk up that number. It will keep track of all your numbers so that when you get retested, you can see, oh, I've improved in this one by this much or whatever. And then you can see where the deficiencies are. You can learn more about what that marker means and how that affects you. You can also work with someone at Inside Tracker who can help you to add those foods, to add those things into your diet if you struggle. It really is a fantastic service, I guess, to use. And I'm excited to tell you that my Running for Real listeners get the deal of the year from Inside Tracker. You could take advantage of their best deal of the year and take control of your health and wellness, which in this year we need it more than ever. You can get $200 off the Ultimate Plan, which is their most comprehensive package, with code GIFT from Run for Real. That's GIFT from Run for Real with the word 4, not the number 4. GIFT from Run for Real. at insidetracker.com. I have been using them for years. There's a reason for that. And I have a feeling that you will appreciate it too. Going into 2020, we need to be looking after our health, particularly in this winter of all winters. So be sure to go use code GIFT from Run For Real at insidetracker.com to get $200 off their ultimate plan. Hi friends, just letting you know that this is episode 221. In the intro, I believe I said it was a different number, but with the Des Linden episode coming in suddenly, I had to redo a lot of the numbers to make room for it, and I'd already recorded them. So just want to apologize and let you know, if you want to find Jacob, if you want to learn anything more about Jacob, you can find it at tinamio.com/episode 221. That's tinamio.com/episode 221 for show notes and links and everything in there. Jacob, I am so excited to have you here on this episode of the Running For Real podcast. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Tina. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am excited to have you, and I'm excited to kind of go into lots of different things on this episode. I just felt we had to have some additional episodes to talk about. It is a tough time throughout the world right now. You have had a particularly tough year for some of the reasons we'll go into in this episode, but I really thought it would be good to bring on some people who have had all these hard hands dealt to them, yet they have managed to stay positive and to prioritize mental health, because I think that's something we all have to do so much. So I'm going to talk about a lot of things in this episode, but I want to just let people listening that know that you are a coach, a race director, an ultra elite teammate of mine, a father of 6. You also are, I would probably say, known for being Tommy Rivers' brother, the person who's been kind of updating the world with how he's doing. But I want to start, I'm going to embarrass you here. I want to start by telling the audience about how impressed and amazed I am with Jacob and his approach to life. So we at Ultra have these team meetings every now and again, where all the Ultra elites jump on a phone call, Zoom call, we all sit and we talk. And as I've said, and as you will learn, Jacob's had a tough year, partially because of his brother Tommy, which we'll go into, going from being grasping at surviving, at not passing away, to being in still now a stable but very weak condition. Despite that, every time I'm on these calls, Jacob makes sure to call out people who have done amazing things. He always says it at the end of the call, like, hey, I just want to say congratulations to this person, or well done to that person. And almost always it is the women and girls. I'm saying this to you right now. When you called out, I think it was myself, Cara, Alicia, and there was one other person on the call. I don't think actually Alicia was on the call, but maybe it was Amelia. And you said about Amelia was already on the team. You said about bringing in these newer women who were strong role models, particularly to young girls, being mothers. And you spoke about us, and it absolutely melted my heart that you, right there in front of all these men, took the opportunity to kind of congratulate these women. So I just wanted to thank you for that and let people know how genuine you are. But then part of me wants to know, where did that come from? That is not a typical male behavior to do something like that in a call with a ton of people. So is it being a father, or were you always that way, as in looking to women for strength?
Probably both. I mean, I have an incredible mother, and I have 2 incredible sisters that I fall between. Strong, independent, hardworking, yet humble and feisty and creative, beautiful, beautiful women. I have been married twice, and I still admire each of the people that I've been married to. They're also very, very intelligent, beautiful, strong women. And I'm the father to 4 daughters. And I know how hard it is to be a dad just in general, and I can't even imagine how hard it is to be a mom. But I know how hard it is to want the very best for your kids, and to realize that, especially with my daughters, like, it doesn't matter how much I love them and how kind and gentle I am with them and adoring I am of them, I'm not female. And so, like, when they see me, they see their dad, they see a man, they don't see someone that they can aspire to be, like, at least in that role as a woman. And so, yeah, I don't know how to be a role model for my daughters. And so I'm constantly looking for people to point to. And I mean, I feel proud, like I said, to be a part of a team or teammates with people like yourself, who are, like, just, these incredible women. You're strong, you're vulnerable, you share, very articulately and very freshly, you share your story. And I want them to know that that's one option. They could become like you. Like, I want them to have strong female role models. So yeah, but I don't know where it comes from, other than just, I've been blessed to be surrounded by, some incredible women. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for the kind words. And I didn't mean to turn it back on myself in any way. I genuinely just wanted to let everyone know, because that was such a rare thing for me to hear a man do. It's one thing for a man to appreciate quietly, but to speak out in front of what was mostly men, it really, really just warmed my heart. And you did it again in our most recent call. So I just wanted to call that out. And then related to that, you said about being a father to 4 girls. What have you realized about, when you were growing up as a young boy compared to what a girl sees when she's growing up? Like, do you see a difference? And have you noticed that more since being a father, where you get to look at it through their eyes?
I definitely see a difference. I think from the perspective of a father, in a former life, I was also a high school teacher and coach. And there's been a lot of discussion about how men coach versus how women coach and things like that. And especially how a man coaches women. And so I feel like just my perspective of what young women experience has evolved, just because, of the experiences that I've had. But I think most of it has come both as a father who wants nothing more than the absolute best for my daughters, but also someone who has tried to be a loving, caring partner of extraordinary women. And so just wanting to be that sounding board and understand what challenges are unique to being a woman and things like that. So I like learning, but I also just mostly want to make sure that my kids and the people that I love feel loved and supported, but also have goals and aspirations and role models. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And then you mentioned there about coaching at the high school level, and then you still coach now, maybe not at the high school level, but would you say recreational athletes right now?
It really varies from, couch to 5K kind of people, all the way up to some of the top trail and ultra marathoners in the world, and kind of everything in between, Boston Marathon qualifiers. So just, I don't coach anyone that was as fast as you were in your prime at this point. It's kind of a wide range of different people and ambitions. For sure.
And so what have you noticed coaching men versus women? What differences in the way that you needed to approach coaching them did you notice?
To be honest, I don't know that it's that cut and dried. Like, I think sometimes people like to make it black and white, and I don't think that's the case. Like, even as a high school coach, there were certain, I coached in a very blue collar town. And so I was probably too much of a hard ass for some of the kids. And I was like exactly what some of the kids needed and wanted and responded really well to. And so, like, some of the fastest girls in the state of Oregon where I was coaching ran for me, and they responded really well to my style of coaching. Sadly, I probably wasn't who some of the young ladies needed or wanted at that point in their development. And that's honestly like a huge regret of mine, is like not knowing how to meet the needs of every athlete. Like when you're trying to coach 100 different kids at different levels, it's hard to be everything for everyone. And so I feel like I connected well with some of the young ladies and they responded well, almost to I wouldn't say a tough love. Like, they knew that like I loved them like they were my little sisters kind of thing. They were the age of my youngest brother kind of thing. So that's how I viewed them. And yet at the same time, like some of them had really great success. Now most of the people that I coach are my age or older, or, adults. And that's a totally different dynamic. But honestly, I wouldn't, as much as I recognize that there are physiological differences and even psychological differences, perhaps I really hate overgeneralizations. Because there are some men and even boys that I coach that like didn't respond well to me, and we just didn't connect. We didn't speak the same language. And it's the same thing. Like there are some guys that I work really well with and others that I don't. And so I don't think it's a gendered thing. I think it's just trying to speak the same language and connecting at that level. And so
what would you say to someone?
I do think there are differences, but
yeah,
I'm sorry. I do think there are differences, but I think it's all very nuanced. And yeah, so.
No, that's fine. And then you mentioned there about not speaking the same language. For someone listening who gets that feeling that they and their coach are not matched, but doesn't want to be seen as high maintenance or doesn't want to hurt that coach's feelings, would you, thinking through the eyes of a coach yourself, say that it is better for both parties there to actually find someone who does speak the same language, who is going to connect with you, rather than just staying with a coach who, because you don't want to hurt their feelings or because you don't want to come across as this like diva who can't work with a coach?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a challenge as well. I have had both young men and young women reach out to me, even though I coach remotely, or their parents have, and they've asked me to coach their child because they don't fit in with the team, or they want to kind of do something separate. 99.9% of the time, I discourage that, just because I do think there's a lot to learn from being a part of a team and the social aspect. And, but I've tried to make myself available to do that from time to time. It's not my preference, even though I love high school cross country and track. I do think a big part of that is being part of a team. But yeah, that's why I have a team of coaches that I work with. So I have men and women that, depending, and we each have different strengths, and we each speak different languages. Like we're all multilingual, like literally speak different languages. And so the goal is to try and meet people where they're at and to make it as comfortable as possible for them. I mean, who wants to learn about something that's already maybe, I don't think running is that complex, but like if you're learning about the science and all these terms and you're doing it in a language that's not your native language, that makes the barrier to entry is greater. And so we have the linguistic piece, but there are two very capable women that I work with on our staff for a team of coaches. And I often, like, as soon as I see someone sign up for coaching, if they haven't requested a coach, when I can kind of flag, like when I see what their goals are, like, this would be a good fit for this coach. It's not just because of gender though. It's like, hey, this person does really well, like wants to cross train more. This coach is really good at cross training, or this person needs some more yoga in their life. Well, this coach is really good at yoga, or it's not necessarily a gendered thing though. Like I I need more yoga in my life. So I would assign myself to work with the coach that's really good at yoga,
She's heard you now. You have to send this to her, and then she'll be like, all right, I know who you're talking about. Time to get going. That'd be funny. Yeah. I want to go into your school, your running experience. Having been someone who never qualified for the Oregon State Track and Field Championships in high school, and then were not offered a scholarship to run in college, that kind of goes against a lot of what listeners might be thinking, that everyone who is a talented runner is that kid who is in PE class and is just crushing everyone and is way out in front and is winning everything. So tell us about, what would you like someone listening to know who is just starting running and they think, well, I'm not very good at it, so I don't know if I have any kind of hope to be better.
Yeah, it really is not just about, but a lot of it is just putting in the time and being patient and allowing your body to adapt. So it needs to be incremental adaptation and just gradually increasing the stimulus or the stimuli. But even in middle school, like my goal at the end of the first cross country season was to finish a 3K or like a 1.5 mile cross country race without stopping. Like after practicing every single day after school, my goal was somehow like finish the last race of the season without stopping. And I finally achieved that. But most of the races, it was like sprint to try and run with my teammates and then stop to catch my breath and sprint. And I was a decent athlete. Like in a small town that cared about ball sports, like I was scrappy, even though I wasn't very big or talented, but I was scrappy. So it wasn't like I didn't have a desire or a competitive edge or anything like that. I just didn't have the stamina yet. And then come to find out, like by the time I was in college and was in exercise science classes and they started hooking my face up to masks and stuff like that, I have like an abnormally high VO2 max that I would have, that like very few people in the world have. And I would have never even known that had I not just like stuck with it. Like I wouldn't have even found myself in that class had I not just kept running. I mean, that opened a lot of doors for me. And so it took over a decade for me to realize, oh, actually I am maybe genetically predisposed to be pretty good at this. It's just, I had to get the structure of my body. Like I had the lungs, I just didn't have the legs or the rest of my body. I honestly didn't even have the core strength to run upright. Like I literally like leaned over at the hips, like almost like a 90-degree angle. I was that weak physically, that it took me a long time to like become an efficient runner. But then by the time I was a decent runner, it's like, oh, because you always had a strong set of lungs, you just didn't have a very strong body. So
that makes sense. That's interesting. And so what happened in that moment when you saw that VO2 max? Did you think, oh, like I need to try some more aerobic? You said you'd been running, but did that make you think about distance running, or how did that change things for you?
Well, I was never great the mile felt like a sprint to me in high school. Like by the time I was running in high school, like if they'd sign us up for the 1500, that was usually like at a B meet where where they didn't need me to score any points. And even then it was usually like, they put me in the 3,000, the longest race on the track, just because I wasn't, there's no way I would be competitive in anything else. And early on, I wasn't competitive no matter what. And then in college, it was the same thing. It was like 5K, 10K, steeplechase, whatever, like do the longest race on the track. Had I run any IA, I probably would have run the marathon. It was just do whatever's longest. But I didn't realize that was actually like what I was best at. I just knew I wasn't good at the short stuff, like at all. Like as soon as I go anaerobic, it's just like game over for me. And so, I guess because maybe before I had the test, on a dare, and it was after taking a couple year break from running. I tried to lose 25 pounds, and a guy across the hall dared me to run a marathon with him. So I ran a marathon, and like out of nowhere, off of honestly like 4 months of training after 2 years break, I ran a lot better than I thought I would.
Do you want to share what that was?
And didn't fuel it. I ran 235 at altitude,
Wow.
but that's not like mind blowing. But for what I was doing, that was mind blowing.
I kind of think that's mind blowing based on what you've just said. Yeah.
No, it was like I wasn't a good collegiate runner for the previous 2 years, and then I took 2 years off, and then I think I actually got strong physiologically, and then the only training I did was I lived across the street from the gym at the school that I was going to, and so I was always the only one in the gym at 5 a.m. in the morning, and I'd run for an hour. That was my workout every single day, just like 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. get on the treadmill, and I had the whole gym to myself. I had mirrors all the way around, and I became an efficient runner on the treadmill because I could focus on my form. And it wasn't just because I was narcissistic, but it was like I actually just like could pinpoint flaws in my form, and I became it. In 4 months, I lost 25 pounds and like got really good at running 6-minute pace on the treadmill. But I mean, there was no rhyme or reason to my training either. I wasn't on a team at that point. I was just trying to get in shape, and I ran that and was on sub 230 pace through like 18 miles, and then realized I should have eaten or drunk something along the way. I didn't know you're supposed to do that either. So, I mean, I blew up really bad. And then I transferred to a school to run on a really bad cross country team at a D2 school. We didn't have a track team. And that's where I was in the exercise science classes. And the professor was Finnish, and he basically made me his lab rat after a while. And he said, like in front of the class, almost sounding like Arnold Schwarzenegger, he was like, "Jacob, you should be a world-class runner. If you actually coach properly, you would be a world-class runner. But you need to do these things. Like you need quit doing all this VO2 max stuff, quit trying to be fast and like be a good 1500, 3000, 5K guy. Like you have an incredible VO2 max and lactate threshold. So like build that, like work on that and focus on those events. And so that's kind of in my mind. It at the time, it just planted a seed. I still had a couple more years of running 8Ks and 10Ks and 5Ks of cross country. But that put the seed or planted the seed that like, hey, maybe I could run marathons, or didn't even know that ultra marathons existed at the time. But then I learned that you can go further than a marathon. And it seemed like the further I went, the better things went for me. Yeah. Competitive wise. Yeah. So,
yeah. Which is really cool. And just, that class for you changed so much the span of you taking that class changed your life and changed your trajectory, probably for life as well as just for running. But for someone listening who is like, okay, well, I can tell my body is not a world class at anything, is not world class in any way, but how can I find my strength? How can I know whether I'm going to be best at the short stuff or the common stuff of marathon, half marathon, or beyond, or trails, or obstacle racing? Like, what would be your advice for someone who's like, I don't know where my biggest strengths lie?
I think in general, the greatest opportunities to improve are in aerobic development, not in anaerobic development. And so many people just fixate on anaerobic stuff, and I think to their detriment. That's not just because that's what works for me. That's just in general. Most people can make greatest gains aerobically. So I think the best way to find out what your talents are, what your gifts are, what your greatest abilities will be in, is to just focus on building your aerobic base while also like building your structures, your bones and your muscles and tissues and things. But build your lungs, and then try a variety of different things. Like I think you'll get a sense of what your strengths are by how long it takes to recover from certain types of workouts. And I personally think in most cases you should train to your strengths, and then as far as doing the majority of your work, what you're already good at, and regardless of what your strengths are, most of that should still be aerobic. And then even the skill development stuff, I think a lot of that can happen, at least when people are transitioning to trails and stuff like that, like trying to get comfortable on trails. I've seen that you've been doing more trail running and things like that. I strongly encourage people to, rather than doing these like trail specific workouts, just start doing your easy runs on trails. Like that's the easiest way to introduce this different surface and these different movements and stuff like that. And truth is, most trail races, even shorter trail races, are aerobic in nature. Mm-hmm. And so it's okay to start at your easy pace. And then, if you find something that's a little more buffed out and once you feel comfortable, or you run the same loop all the time, you can start doing strides or fartleks and things like that on it. But you don't necessarily have to like go and run hill repeats up and down a mountain to be a trail runner or whatever. Like you can do a lot of that just organically in your training. And then, so I think you can see where your strengths are based on how well you feel while doing workouts, but also how long it takes to recover, whether that's a long run, whether that's a tempo run, whether that's traditional speed work. It just kind of varies.
Thank you to Tracksmith for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast and for being with me this year. I've been so thankful for their products. I've been purchasing their products myself. I got some extras for my birthday that Steve got me. I've been getting them for my friends and family. I truly love this stuff. And yes, I understand that sometimes I do get given things, and that can be tough to hear when we know that people who are representing brands are getting free stuff, so they're not having to pay. But I have been purchasing things myself because I love them. The same with, I've heard that Malcolm Gladwell also purchases things for himself and for others. The same with Rich Roll. These products are quality. I know they are a bit more than maybe what you've paid in the past, but they are so worth it. Tracksmith is this Boston-based brand led by a group of runners who are committed to making classically stylish, cutting-edge apparel. They have this simple goal, which is craft the most considered product on the market for runners dedicated to the personal pursuit of excellence. I can attest to this myself. I have worn their clothes in races now. I have worn their clothes for hours on end now. I have tested it out in every way possible. I've tested the quality. It doesn't seem to change at all as you continue to wash it, rather than most running clothes, which tend to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until you wonder what is going on with my body. But these do not change. They are quality products and they shine in the winter. In the winter months, that is where they really find their own. And I am just loving the Harrier tank, the Brighton base tank, and this session sweatpants I have been wearing all day long while I'm lounging around the house. They are just ideal. I forgot how much I love sweatpants. I haven't been wearing them. I've been so into wearing tights. But I am loving those session pants, and I definitely would recommend getting some of those. I do have lots of my favorite items. If you go to tinamuir.com/tracksmith, or you can go to tracksmith.com and use code TINA15 to get $15 off your purchase of $75 or more. And I just want to highlight one thing quickly, which is that they have this off-road collection, which you've probably seen me using, which is celebrating the world of trail running. So now they realize that trail running also is important to us as runners, and it doesn't have to mean that you're this hardcore 24-hour runner, but you could be someone like me who just heads over there on a weekend or even once every now and again. But I love that they've created these products to help get out in nature and explore as this way to engage with the sport, but also to detach yourself from what's going on. So definitely recommend that off-road collection. So again, you can use code TINA15 for $15 off your purchase of $75 or more.
But you don't necessarily have to go and run hill repeats up and down a mountain to be a trail runner or whatever. You can do a lot of that just organically in your training. And then, so I think you can see where your strengths are based on how well you feel while doing workouts, but also how long it takes to recover, whether that's a long run, whether that's a tempo run, whether that's traditional speed work. It just kind of varies.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. I wouldn't have thought about that. I appreciate that. Okay. So I want to ask a bit about your brother, Tommy Rivers, which we mentioned at the beginning. I know many people are interested in following how he's doing, but for those who have his name doesn't ring any bells, have not heard, I don't know what you've been doing if that's the case, because it definitely the running community has come behind Tommy, and it's been amazing to see, and your whole family. But tell us a little bit, just, or would you rather I tell just kind of the nutshell of what happened to Tommy?
I'm happy to tell. You can fill in the blanks, or we can go either way.
Okay, well, maybe if you're not fed up of saying it, then maybe you can start there, and I can take over if need be.
Sure. So my brother is a good runner.
That's putting it mildly, right?
I mean, he's run 2:18 a few times in the marathon, and has performed well at the Boston Marathon. He was trying to qualify for the Olympic trials. I think one thing that stands out is that he doesn't look like he belongs in those spaces. He's a big guy. Like, I mean, we both have like 200-pound frames that we try to whittle down to 150, 160-pound frames, but we're still running against people that weigh 110 pounds, 120 pounds. And I'm happy to talk about that as well. I know that's a topic we could discuss, but
I'm not, I've discouraged people from trying to hit weights, but otherwise, I think we've got other things we've covered here.
For sure. Yeah. So, but I just want to say that, we both try and do it as healthily as possible. And we don't fixate on a number. So anyway, he's still a big guy. Like he looks like a bull in a china shop kind of thing when he's out there running against mostly East Africans. And in addition to that, he's tatted up and he has this big orange or red beard. Looks like a Viking. And so even though he looks like just like a biker, or a pirate, like, he is also just like a very kind soul, and a Renaissance man of sorts. He speaks multiple languages, and a lot of people know him because he does these videos with iFit, an app that you can get on your treadmill. And so he shows people the world and teaches them about different cultures and geology and stuff like that. So that's who he is, in addition to being a father and a husband and a doctor of physical therapy. And he was trying to come back from an injury that occurred at the Houston Marathon this last year, and was documenting some of that. And he lives in Flagstaff, Arizona, so he was in the Grand Canyon and couldn't get out. And he spends quite a bit of time in the Grand Canyon training, and he was really sick. He was coughing up blood. He was peeing blood. He thought maybe he was dehydrated. Then he thought maybe he had COVID, because it was right as soon as kind of everything was hitting fan. So they live near the largest indigenous reservation or population in North America, I believe, near the Navajo reservation. And so he knew that there were shortages of beds on the reservation. And so a lot of the people from the reservation needed the beds in town. And he also figured that if he didn't have, if he didn't have COVID, he would probably get COVID if he went to the hospital. So he tried to self-isolate for 2 weeks away from his family and away from everyone else. And it got worse. And so he basically passed out while coughing up blood. And his wife brought him in, and it took another couple of weeks in ICU doing biopsies, trying to figure out what was going on, trying to determine what was going on with his lungs, if it was pneumonia, COVID, bubonic plague, virus, and then it was determined that he has NKT cell primary pulmonary lymphoma, I believe is what it's called. And so it's a really aggressive form, a very rare and aggressive form of lymphoma that had entirely consumed his lungs. He went from being a world-class athlete to not only being on a ventilator, but also being on an ECMO machine, where basically his lungs weren't really even transporting the oxygen throughout his body. All that was doing, it was being done synthetically outside of his body. Mm-hmm. His blood was getting oxygenated, and then he was getting oxygenated blood, because that was the only way to keep him alive. And so he was on life support for over 3 months. and in a coma, and paralyzed. And he's now coming back from that. So he's dealing with the atrophy, the bed sores. He's lost over 70 pounds. For quite a while, he was in a pretty serious mental fog, or it was almost like he had Alzheimer's or something. Like he wouldn't remember what had happened the day before, or even who some of us were. And so it was pretty traumatic for a lot of people. But he's out of the ICU. He's off life support. He's still going through rounds of chemotherapy. He's in a rehab facility to try and regain some weight and some strength and mobility before bone marrow transplant. And so he still has been in a hospital, not able to go home. I think it's going on. I think we're into the 5th month or something. Mm-hmm. So.
And his wife is the only one. His wife Steph's the only one who's actually seen him, right? That none of you have been able to.
None of the rest of us have been able to. It's his daughter's birthday this week, and I just saw a picture of her in there hugging him. So his older daughter, I think, is the only other member of the family who has seen him now, but that was only because he's been able to, like, they're essentially isolated. They've had to move to a different part of the state for the facility that he's in. So he's been able to see his daughter.
That's amazing.
That was really beautiful.
Yeah, I bet. Well, and you have been kind of the source of information for the running community. The running community really took hold of this, wanted to do everything that they can. On his GoFundMe page, over 600,000 has been raised. There was all these fundraisers for Run with Rivs that just went totally viral within our community. And you've been the person who's been giving feedback. I mean, obviously now he's able to update a little bit himself, but for you, a few things I want to ask first. When I was researching for you, he was saying, or you put up a recap of your CIM race last December, and you put about Tommy having a rough race, how he kept passing out. I think he was passing out, or he kept falling to the ground, didn't he? Yeah. Was that like an early sign that something was going on for him, or was that unrelated?
That's hard to tell. So we grew up in rural Oregon, mm-hmm. and that was kind of during a running renaissance, or at least an American running renaissance, and a renaissance of Oregon running. And so that's when the pre-movies came out and stuff like that. And so like, that's the way we were raised to run, was just like run until you black out. And so I think part of it, so I've seen him do that before.
Okay, so he has done that before.
In workouts, in races, but actually like go to the other side. Like I've had to resuscitate him before, because it's not just like, oh, I'm going to faint. It's like, no. So he has that ability, kind of, blessing or curse. He doesn't have a governor. Or he's tried to teach himself to have one, but sometimes he's able to go to those dark places that others aren't able to go to. And so, but some have thought, and some were very concerned, because he's done that in races like CIM, like Houston the year before. He did it where he was in the medical tent, and they were like having to like scratch his chest to like wake him up or something. But I've actually been at the Xterra World Championships once. We were running together, and I was excited because I was passing him as we were going in. Finished. I was like, sweet, I'm having a good race. And then he collapsed, and it took 4 of us to like get him onto a stretcher and like actually like hook him up to an IV and like get him revived. So yeah, it's unfortunately that's been a more frequent occurrence than I think either of us would like, but it has also given me confidence that like when things were looking really bleak, it was like, this is just another one of those times where he just goes to the other side, then comes back. And,
I guess, he has the ability to come back from, really stressful things on his body. So yeah, that's a whole new level. I actually am one of those people that can push beyond what my body is capable of as well. But I went so far one day that it scared me, and I have never been able to even touch that zone since, because I got so scared that I was going to have a heart attack or something when I was running, that I don't know, my mind, I guess, maybe won't let me go there anymore. But yeah, I can't say I went that far. So that's, yeah, as you say, a blessing or a curse. Who knows? It's, I'd say from my experience, I'd probably mostly say that I didn't like that I could do that. But yeah, anyway, this isn't about me. But I want to also bring up here that this year, the way things have been, a lot of people have put off their annual tests or regular checkups. So as you are the family member of someone who has been through this really, really life-threatening situation, and not that him having a checkup would have necessarily changed anything, but what would you like to say to someone who is putting off their mammogram or their prostate check or their other routine checkups because they're predicting that this is going to be a major knock-on effect from this year, that the cancer rates are going to skyrocket because people are going to put it off and wait until it's later in the game? So would you have any advice for someone, or what would you say to people who have thought, oh, I'll just wait till next year to get my stuff checked up?
Yeah, I would say do whatever your primary physician recommends. And so I know that there are different age groups and people that are at higher risk for different types of cancers and things like that. So obviously if it's a mammogram, or if it's for testicular or prostate cancer, or colonoscopies, I mean, those are usually based on age unless there are symptoms. And then, there are others like skin cancer, melanoma kind of thing, that usually it's do what you can for preventative measures, but then check things out before it's too late, kind of thing. I'll admit I'm not the best at, like, I hate going. I live in Canada where it's like nationalized healthcare, and I still hate going to the doctor. Like, it's not even the cost; it's just the inconvenience, and it's just the thought of, like, really, do I have to? So I know that there is certainly anxiety, or just like this feeling of, is it really worth it? So yeah.
And yes, I
but
definitely
it is.
think it is.
Yeah.
Yes. Go check, you do not want to find yourself in a situation, or family member, encourage them if they're putting it off as well. Like, yes, it's uncomfortable to go in a mask, and yes, it does increase your risk slightly, but I think most medical buildings, medical places have taken the precautions to make sure that you are protected. Okay. And then to you, has it been a bit overwhelming at times being that kind of go-to person, even just the positivity, the support? I can only imagine the amount of messages you are getting, you being very vulnerable and open about, as it's happening, sharing what's been going on. How have you handled this yourself with that kind of weight that's fallen onto your shoulders?
Well, it's kind of twofold. Or it's a double-edged sword, I guess. I'm not able to be there, both because there are limitations due to COVID. I also live in Canada, and the border has been closed pretty much since he got sick. And so it's difficult to even get commercial flights, or even if I wanted to cross as a U.S. citizen, I can, but then there's quarantine measures in place. So it's actually nice for me to feel like I can do something. I mean, even though he's the one that most people recognize, he's still my little brother. He's not really my little brother, but he's younger than me. And so, like, I love him, and I want to take care of him, and I want to take care of his family. And I want to do whatever I can to make sure that they're okay. So on the one side, like, I'm grateful that I'm able to do something, and it gives me something to do. Like, it gives me some sense of purpose and meaning through this hell of just not really even knowing what what to do, and like feeling powerless. And I think impotent is even a word that I would describe that. It's really hard to just see someone that you love so much suffer and not know what to do. So this has given me something to do. At the same time, I mean, I don't have anywhere near the type of social media following that he has or anything like that. And I can't even imagine what he experiences on a daily basis, because I went probably a month without being able to sleep. It was just like around the clock, just like hundreds, thousands of messages every single day, mostly of support, but also of questions about how they can support. But it was pretty intrusive and really challenging. But I because it was for him, I know he's really good at somehow making sure people feel seen and heard. And so I didn't want to dismiss people who were trying to express their love for him and for me because of him. And so it was hard. My own personal, like my businesses are based in running. And so as a coach and as a race director. And so there have been a lot of pretty significant changes and pivots and adjustments that have had to be made with all of that, that have been quite time consuming because of the need to cancel and postpone and keep people up to date. And so, yeah, I mean, it's been very overwhelming. It was overwhelming before he got sick, because of all the changes. Like, I was thinking I was going to get to watch all these cool Netflix series that are coming out and things. And I still haven't seen The Last Dance or whatever that Michael Jordan one is. And I mean, that was like, I was stoked. I was like, man, this is great. I'm more time at home. And like, no, all I'm doing is sitting in front of a computer trying to keep virtual races going or adjusting people's schedules because another race got canceled or they added another virtual race or something. So that has been just, everything together has been certainly been a challenge.
Thank you to Athletic Greens for sponsoring this episode of the Running For Real podcast. I don't know what more I could say about Athletic Greens. I love it. I mean this 100% from my heart. I write Athletic Greens in my gratitude journal at least once, if not more times a week. And I truly feel that because this gives me 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food source ingredients that work together to help my body. It gives me adaptogens. It gives me probiotics, prebiotics, gut health. It's the superfood complex that helps to support the body's nutritional needs across these critical areas of health. I have not been the best at getting in the nutrition I should be, but I know that I am safe and I'm looking after my body. I'm building up my immune system with Athletic Greens. And your bonus gift for signing up right now is that you will get a 1 year free supply of vitamin D3, K2, which we know is absolutely critical this year, but every year to prevent you feeling that vitamin D levels dropping, as we've heard with Inside Tracker. It really can be quite detrimental to our health and can really wreak havoc with our body and how we feel in our running. There is so much that it can affect, and you can make sure that you are doing your best to prevent that by taking those vitamin D drops each day, and Athletic Greens will give you those for free. I actually drop 2 drops into my shaker of Athletic Greens and just drink it together so that it's done, because I just find if not, I just forget. So that's the easiest thing for me to do. But the Athletic Greens powder itself will give you the antioxidant equivalent of 12 servings of fruits and vegetables per scoop. So you can go about your day knowing that you're looking after your body. You're getting these important, hard to find ingredients that are and these high level of antioxidants that are going to boost your immunity. My digestion feels like it's better supported while I'm at home, and it has magnesium, which also helps with sleep and helps with muscle soreness. We know that the perfect diet doesn't exist, but this is one way you can look after yourself. So you can go to athleticgreens.com/Tina. That's athleticgreens.com/Tina to go sign yourself up and also to get a 1 year supply of free D3, K2.
It was overwhelming before he got sick, because of all the changes. Like, I was thinking I was going to get to watch all these cool Netflix series that are coming out and things. And I still haven't seen The Last Dance or whatever that Michael Jordan one is. And I mean, that was like, I was stoked. I was like, man, this is great. I'm more time at home. And like, no, all I'm doing is sitting in front of a computer trying to keep virtual races going, or adjusting people's schedules because another race got canceled, or they added another virtual race or something. So that has been just, everything together has been certainly been a challenge.
For sure.
Yeah. Mentally, physically, emotionally. Yeah. All of it.
Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you, if you don't mind me sharing something that you said to me in a direct message to me, which is that this experience has created, I'm going to read this. This is your words. The experience has created a huge paradigm shift for me. Like most runners, I pride myself on being independent and low maintenance. This experience has exposed my vulnerabilities, fears, weaknesses, blind spots, and given me a new appreciation for humanity in general and the running community in particular. Would you mind explaining, tell us a bit about your thoughts there? What do you mean by that? Because I think those words will resonate with so many people listening. And I think all of us feel, most people listening would have been raised to think that whole, I can do it myself, I don't need help. And it is hard to ask for help. So tell us about your thoughts there with that.
Yeah. I mean, to be completely honest, I've never experienced loss or even the fear of loss so deeply and profoundly. Like I've lost grandparents, but it's at least those that I knew were like of the age where it was expected. Like they were in their 80s, and so it wasn't like a surprise or something as abrupt as this. And I really wasn't close to them growing up, and so it wasn't. It just felt like, okay, another elderly person passed away that I have this connection to, but that sounds really awful, but it wasn't like, I know people have different relationships. I just, because of proximity and geography, I just didn't live close enough to either grandparent to like feel anything other than just every couple of years we saw each other, connection. Whereas my brother, we basically spent every waking moment together from the time he was born and until I moved out of the house at 18 or 17. And then we were college teammates again after that. And then I lived in Flagstaff when he was like, we were both going to grad school. Like we tried to spend as much time together as we possibly could. And so when someone that's that close to you, that there's the thought that you might lose them, it just, I guess in some ways it increased my sense of empathy for what other people have experienced. I've been a coach of people who've gone through loss or depression or these difficult times, and I haven't known how to even think in terms of how to adapt or adjust or what to say. And I don't know that I have any more answers or clarity on that, but I at least know what it feels like to be scared. And to not know what the future holds, and to literally be paralyzed by fear and uncertainty and anxiety. So yeah, it's been, if anything, it's just opened my eyes, and hopefully it's given me a deeper appreciation for other people and for the human experience. And hopefully it will help me become a better partner and parent and friend and coach, sibling, and member of a community. But it is certainly, I have been buoyed up, and my family has been buoyed up by the support of like hundreds of thousands of people. Literally, like that's not putting it mildly, from all over the world, from almost 100 different countries, like all over the world, people that I don't know, that have no connection to whatsoever. And people that my brother has no connection to other than through, for the most part, other than through social media or through these iFit videos, or even people sharing his story. And I think because he is so fit and so strong and so young and so full of life, I think a lot of people see him in them. Yeah. And that's scary. It's like, how can someone that healthy, like he looks like a Greek god, like in some, I'm not trying to say like we don't look the same. Some people say we look the same. I'm not saying I look like him, but he looks very fit. And so to go from that to like just on his back and on life support was really traumatic and dramatic. And so I think that's shaken a lot of people, but hopefully helped us be more grateful and live in the present, and just appreciate what we have around us and quit fixating on what we don't have.
Would you say you definitely have noticed a shift there in paying attention to what's going on around you and being appreciative of even small, not just small improvements in him, but small victories and wins in your daily life? I'm really trying to do that. I am recognizing and appreciating. I mean, he was gone for so long and couldn't hear his voice, and even when he came out, he had a tracheotomy, so he couldn't speak. And the second language that he learned was sign language, and so our family was hopeful that he'd be able to sign with us even before he could speak. And he was so atrophied and was still dealing with the paralysis that he couldn't even raise his hand to wave or to do an "I love you" sign or anything. And so to see someone that strong and that loving and that capable of communicating unable to do that, it was really hard to see. But then when he made the transition from ICU to the bone marrow wing, the visitation times changed, and he all of a sudden had his phone, and he asked us, just his family, he was just like, "Will you guys please text me, because I need to learn how to use my fingers and my hands again." And so to go from world-class athlete to I can't even hold my phone between my digits, and I can't even text with my thumbs, was really hard. And then there was I think we went 5 days and didn't hear anything from him or Steph or the doctors or anything. It was what's going on? And I was losing it. And I called my dad, and he, as I called my dad, as my dad picked up, he's like, "Hey, what's up?" And I got 2 texts from my brother, and he said, "I love you, Jake. We'll be together soon." So something as insignificant as a text message. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, it was everything.
I don't care if people believe in a higher power or not. That was an answer to prayers, and that was as good as a direct message from God in terms of whoever the gods may be or not. But that, he did what he has always done, and he spoke comfort to my heart and to my soul when I needed it most. And so, yeah, I went from running, the Trans Rockies run with him, or racing CIM with him. That was the last time I saw him in person, was at CIM. So I went from, trying to qualify for the Olympic trials together to celebrating when I got a text from him. And both because of the message, but also because I knew that meant that he was, that could have taken him minutes, if not hours, to just compile those characters in the form of a text. But knowing that he was coherent enough to do it, and knowing that he had the ability to do it, that was a huge, still stands out as one of the best experiences of my life. Of course, just receiving a text.
Yeah. No, not surprising. No. And you do not have to apologize on this podcast at all. And I find it amazing that you said, about him trying to comfort you, because I also saw his wife, Steph, posting about him scratching. Was it her hand? He was scratching her hand to comfort her, or was it a daughter?
No, it was her.
Yeah. And she knew that even for all that he's going through, he wanted to comfort her. As soon as he could give his hand the ability to do that movement. So it just says so much about him, and for you with sharing about how you're feeling and allowing yourself to be emotional and vulnerable. And, you've put these videos up where you are on the edge of tears quite a lot. And it's been so comforting to many people who are either going through something like that, have experienced something like that, or just we connect with people who let down their guard. This podcast is all about that. So did that come naturally to you, or was that something you really had to force yourself to get out of that comfort zone, to worry about what others would think?
No, this is definitely something that I inherited from our mother. She's learned over time to, we call it the peach pit. You can see when she's about to cry when she's been touched, because her chin quivers. So yeah, I've always been way more emotional than I think most people think a strong male should be.
I think that is the definition of a strong male, actually.
No, I appreciate that. I've even received some criticism about, just in the last few months, about being like too emotional or exploitative, or like making a scene out of stuff. And it's like, that's just it's who I am. I've tried to be as composed as possible. Ironically, I used to be a communications teacher, and so like I would teach people how to publicly speak and stuff like that. And if I care about something, I can't, like, if it touches my heart or my soul, like I can't hold back the tears. And I was like that even as a coach of high school athletes. Like we'd be at the awards thing and I'd be in tears with most of my athletes, just because I love them so much. And I view them as like my family. And so yeah, when it's something that I care about, I'm pretty emotional, and my feelings are pretty close to the heart. So yep.
That's I think that shows only strength where males are able to do that. So I'm all for it. And then to finish off here, I just want to ask you about one other thing that you said to me, if you're okay with me sharing this, which is you want to let other runners know what it is. That it is okay and normal to not have all the answers and to ask for help. I think this is particularly important for men to hear, because we spent much of our lives being told and believing we have to be strong and independent, and it is our responsibility for others to rely on us, not the other way around. Explain your thoughts there, and then just why you feel that way. I mean, I love that you feel that way, but tell us about where that comes from and what you'd like to say.
Yeah, I like I said, I grew up in rural America, where, you're supposed to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and like that's the mentality, and it's ball sports, and no pain, no gain, that you can just grind through anything. And I'm grateful that I grew up with like some pretty hard-nosed, strong, independent people. Independent is somewhat, like you can, we could go off on a tangent on that one, but I am grateful for the upbringing that I've had. But I do think it's really challenging to just come to terms with that in reality. Like, it's not possible to to have all the answers, or to fix everything. And so, if anything, for me, it's been, I don't know if therapeutic's the right word, but yeah, it's been really helpful for me to recognize that I can't be everything to everyone. I can't fix everything, and I don't have to be perfect as much as I want to be. It just in the last month or so, two people that were more acquaintances, but that were professional acquaintances, actually three people have passed away, like young, way too young. Two of them from suicide, another from an overdose, but I don't think it was an intentional suicide. Two of them are athletes that I coached. One of them is a fellow race director, and no one saw any of it coming, like at all. Like it was all a surprise. They've got young families, or they've got a full life ahead of them. And that has happened, and that has rocked me. Because I feel like, why didn't I see that? Why wasn't I there for them? And then I've been isolated from most of my nuclear family because of the border closures and stuff like that. And in a community where, I'm in this community where my wife lives, and where she's from, but so anyone I know is through her. But most of them aren't people that are like, that I connect with personally, like that I hang out with socially without her. And so, It's been really challenging for me to deal with all of this and really not have. Tommy's been who I go to, and he's been the one that's been unavailable more than anyone. And so in some ways it has helped me connect more with other members of my family, or try and connect more with others. But I part of the reason we're meeting at this time today is because I told you I have a counseling session later today. Like I've been working with a therapist before this happened. And in most cases, it's really because I just need an objective third party to help me see clearly, like, what's going on, like just talk through stuff, like, because I think especially for people like you and I and most runners, we're drawn to running because we do like the the thrill of kind of like of progress and of achievement and stuff like that. And so life is a lot messier than just like getting a PR or getting a medal or even getting a really good GPA. It's not like you can't quantify everything, and you don't, being a parent, you don't get regular positive feedback all the time. Sometimes you just get negative feedback, or you feel like the weight of the world is on you. And so sometimes it's just helpful to have someone that you don't feel like you're dumping your stuff on a partner or a friend, and you can just talk through it with someone else. So
absolutely.
I wish I had started doing it sooner. I wish that I wouldn't have been so proud. I wish that more people would do it, and I would highly recommend it. It has been a boon to my life, and I think it has helped the other members of my family, just because I'm less on edge when I have a bit more perspective. And then, in addition to that, just meditating or journaling or just trying to do things aside from just work and run and
overthinking
everything else around. Everything else around being a parent and homeowner and that kind of stuff. So
thank you for sharing that. I am all about people going to therapy. I also, as I told you, do have a therapist who I work with, and I personally believe everyone should be in therapy. Like, I understand it's expensive, and it may be only something that people can prioritize during times they especially need it, but I really believe in the power of it. So I'm all about that. And I just want to add, I will put a link in the show notes to the Beyond Running episode I did on suicide, just because this is something, taking your own life is something that is happening and probably will continue to happen more over the coming years, I would imagine. So it's good for us all to educate ourselves on that. So I would encourage you to go listen to that, and I will have a link in the show notes. All right, Jacob, do you have any final messages you want to give out to the running world now you have their ear? Or if you want to just tell them about some other things, about the races that you do, whatever you want to share with them, just to wrap up here.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you. I listened to your podcast. It must have been a couple of years ago, and I distinctly remember hearing your voice, and you were actually speaking about just being a mom and parenting and figuring out what to feed kids and when to feed them solid foods, I think. I distinctly remember a conversation. I even remember where I was running when I heard that.
Wow, one of those.
And it was, and it was the first time I listened to your show. I was just trying to find something to listen to and didn't know who you were, just listened to it, and then subscribed and have been a fan ever since. So thank you for being honest and for being real. I don't want to go into this too much, but again, as an athlete who has, as a male who's dealt with, I guess, body dysmorphia, and also as a parent and a coach and a spouse of runners, I know that that most people who are drawn to the sport deal with it in some form or fashion. And I'm really grateful for you for being so vulnerable and articulate and honest and thank you for that.
Thank you. That's really kind.
So important. I want my daughters to hear about that and know that there's nothing wrong with them if they have thoughts one way or the other, and that they can be beautiful, whether they're runners or not, or whether they look a certain way or not. And I want my sons to feel the same way. So thank you for that. This is definitely way harder this time. Again, even before anything happened with my brother, this time has been by far my most trying time in my life. For so many different reasons. I didn't realize, even as an introvert, how much having the ability to travel and to see and interact with my friends and family, even those within the community, it's been really hard on me. It's been really hard on my kids. It's been hard on all of us. And it's been hard on a lot of people financially. Even you and I run for ultra, and like as soon as things went down, the first thing they did is say, hey, we've got to cut the travel budgets and bonuses because you guys aren't going to be racing anyway, right? And it's like, but can we hold out? Like, what if Boston does happen? That was I really want to run Boston. So, I mean, even at a very small level, that has impacted us. But I mean, as race directors, as coaches, it's impacting all of us. It's impacting a lot of people even more than it has me. But I mean, I've lived off $1 a day before in really hard conditions where there's, abject poverty and tons of violence. And this is way harder for me personally than living in those conditions, just mentally, emotionally, and not knowing what the path forward is other than just keep moving forward and try and connect however you can with whoever you can. I was in a bad place last night. I found out that one of my athletes, one that I mentioned, had passed away. One of the young women that I coached when she was in high school. And so it was my little brother's birthday, but he's the same age as her. And I needed to talk to someone. And it was late, and I called my dad and I called my sister. And so do whatever you can to even reach out to your family members and friends to talk through those things. I knew I had a therapy session today, and I wasn't soon enough. I wasn't going to do anything to harm myself. I just needed to talk to someone and not feel alone. So I would recommend that people take advantage of this opportunity to strengthen those friendships and the familial relationships and to repair any relationships that you do have with partners, with family members, with neighbors, even if they have a different sign in their lawn than you had or than you think they should have. You can still be friends, and hopefully we can just focus on the good and not focus on our differences. So those are my final words, I guess.
No, I appreciate that. And I just want to add one more thing to people listening. Based on what Jacob just said there, it's very easy for us to look at other family members or people we know, friends, and maybe see what they're doing on social media or hear what they're doing and feel, oh, they're too busy to talk to me. They don't have time to talk to me. Like, I'm not going to burden them with this. But I just want to say, and I'm sure you agree here, that when it's people you care about, like, it doesn't matter how busy you are. You will drop everything to be there and be a listening ear and to listen to those people. So if you are someone who's having a really hard time, reach out to those you love, even if they are busy. And yes, they may not reply to your text messages, or they may not be able to call you as much as they would like to, or you would like to. But if you need it, I guarantee you those loved ones will be there for you. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I know sometimes it's very easy, and I do it too, and I'm sure you do as well. Like, you think, oh, I don't want to burden that person right now. Like, I'll just speak to them when they're not so busy. But we never get any less busy. But at the end of the day, our relationships are the number one thing in our life. So everything else can go on hold. I don't know if you agree with that, but that's just personally. Just wanted to add that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I hope that we can. My goal is to also be that person that will pick up. I'm so grateful when I need to reach out to someone and they actually pick up, and I know that I'm guilty of being too busy because of work, because of I need to get my run in, or because I've got kids, that sometimes maybe I'm not available to pick up, and that's one thing that I or I tell myself I'm not. And that's one thing I've learned through this process with my brother is just like how many people, the reason so many people love him is because for whatever reason, somehow it wasn't just because he was trying to get likes on social media. Like he actually, I can't even imagine how many direct messages he receives or received. Because I'm overwhelmed with the amount that I'm getting, and I doubt it's like even 10% of what he's getting or what he was getting. And so, but most of those people are reaching out to me because they had reached out to him in the past and he was there for them. It's like, oh man, like I don't know how you carry that much weight. Literally the weight of the world is what it feels like. And yet, he was able to, and I want to be able to be that kind of person. And that's something I didn't even know about him. I knew he ran and that he was on social media, but I've learned through this awful experience that, there can be good, and we can become better people, through these tough times. So
thank you so much. Yeah. All right. I will put links to your races, to your social media in the show notes. Jacob, thank you so much. I appreciate you, that big heart of yours. And thanks for sharing with us today.
Yeah. Thank you.
Before we end this episode, I just want to take a moment to shout out my podcast editor, Jeremy Nessel, who has done such a wonderful job of looking after my podcast, taking out all the mishaps in the episodes, while still keeping in the vulnerability and the realness and the rawness of the conversation. This is not one of those podcasts where I take out the ums and the ers and the sometimes the delay in words, because I think it's very important to keep that authenticity. We're surrounded by perfected and manicured everything, and I think it's really important that Running for Real stays that way. So thank you to Jeremy for your work. I also want to thank Maria Vargas and Amber Moore, who are also part of my team. They've been a big part of this community and me being able to build this brand. So just want to give them a shout out too. All right, let's get right back to the end of this episode. Thank you so much to Jacob for letting us get to know him, for, again, that vulnerability that he shows. A really, really wonderful guy, and I'm so thankful for him. You can find links to everything we talked about in the show notes today, including where you can donate to go support Tommy by going to tinamuir.com/episode 222. So that's tinamuir.com/episode 222. I want to thank you so much for listening today. Again, I mentioned earlier, be sure to go listen to that episode on Friday with Oren J. Sofa. I've had a lot of really empowering episodes lately. I've been really proud to interview. Oren was my favorite person on the 10% Happier app course, Des Linden, and then Rich Roll. It's just been a really great month of interviews. So I'm really thankful for that. And Jacob was another wonderful one that I really enjoyed. So next week, I actually do have another bonus episode coming next Monday. And then on Friday, we have another episode with Daryl Murphy, another person who's doing something really cool. So this month of November has brought a lot of really special people in, and I hope you are enjoying these episodes as much as I am. I just want to take a moment to thank our sponsors for this episode. I want to thank Inside Tracker. You can take advantage of Inside Tracker's best deal of the year by taking control of your health and wellness with $200 off the Ultimate Plan, which is their most comprehensive package. You can use code GIFT from Run for Real. That's GIFT from Run for Real. And at InsideTracker.com to get $200 off the Ultimate Plan. I told you about why I love that in the episode. I can also put a link in the show notes if you do not remember that code, that will tell you the code. Again, you can go to tinamuir.com/episode 222 to go get that. And I also want to thank Athletic Greens for sponsoring this episode. You can get a 1-year free supply of vitamin D3K2 with your first month. And I am so thankful for this supplement with 75 whole food sourced ingredients, prebiotics, probiotics, adaptogens. It is just a wonderful insurance policy to have, particularly this winter of all winters. You can go to athleticgreens.com/Tina to go take advantage of that offer. Thank you so much, my friends. I'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.